Chapter 2 La Cité des Cloches. Riku arrived in a city lined with rows of brick houses. He seemed to be in a back street somewhere. There wasn't much light. The streets were paved with stone. A ways ahead, he could see a bright area that looked like a plaza. Riku looked up and saw that Komori Bat was still with him. He also heard another voice from down by his feet.
What? Who are you?
A dream eater that looked like some kind of doggish cat thing was standing there, wagging its tail at him. It didn't seem to be a nightmare.
Are you tagging along too?
Meow rubbed against Riku's legs.
Does this mean dream eaters besides the one I made can join me? Or maybe he's the spirit of someone else in the same position as me. Don't tell me you're Sora's.
Meow rolled over and showed Riku its belly, all but asking for a rub. Riku knelt down and complied.
Guess I should just be happy to have the extra help. Okay, let's go.
As soon as Riku started off for the plaza, a man came running up to him.
You there!
The golden-haired man was wearing armor, and he had a neatly trimmed beard on his chin.
Have you seen a gypsy woman? Gypsy? What's a gypsy?
Nope, replied Riku.
Sorry. All right, thanks.
The man turned around and hurried back toward the plaza. From the look of it, he was in trouble with an older man dressed in black and purple robes.
I'm terribly sorry, sir,
said the man in armor.
We've lost her.
He bowed his head.
Slippery vermin.
The older man clenched his fist so hard it was trembling with fury, then glowered at the younger man.
I am beginning to question having summoned you back from the wars, Captain Phoebus.
This Phoebus person just kept his head down until the man in the robe began to walk away, then hurried out of sight after him. Riku didn't know what was going on, but it couldn't be anything good. Behind him, a woman with rich black hair and dark skin stepped out of hiding. Thank you, you stood up for me. I'm Esmeralda.
Riku, and it's not like I know what a gypsy is,
he replied honestly. He hadn't gone out of his way to help her, really. He just couldn't say he'd seen something when he didn't know what it was. That said, Esmeralda didn't seem like the kind of person who would be hurting anyone.
Why are they chasing you?
Riku asked. Judge Frollo has been hunting us for years. We gypsies are guilty of nothing but loving our freedom, yet Frollo hates whatever he can't control.
Someone who wants to hunt gypsies and take away their freedom? That guy in the robes must have been Frollo then.
Now he's even brought in fresh blood to torment us, she continued. I'd hate to know what darkness drives that man. Riku frowned. So he used the darkness, and that same darkness drove him forward. Darkness was a part of everyone's hearts, but an obsession was at once intriguing and disturbing.
Tell me more. Was he always like this?
I don't give Frollo much thought. She snapped, as if saying his name left a bad taste in her mouth. She could see in his eyes that he had more questions, so she turned behind her, toward the large building in the square. But if you'd like, you can try Notre Dame. They say it's a place for answers.
Got it. I'll go there.
Riku set off for the open square with the cathedral where the sun was free to shine. Unlike the back streets, the area was filled with several tents and lined with small decorative flags. Maybe there was a festival going on? When he reached the middle of the plaza, Riku looked up at the cathedral. It was enormous, decorated with statues along the walls to guard it from evil. Riku climbed the steps and peered inside through the big doors.
Is anybody here?
In the very back of the chapel was a stained glass window, where a few rays of light were shining through. Other than that, the place was empty. Riku stepped into the chapel and started walking toward the back. Esmeralda had said he might learn something by coming here, but Riku got the feeling he might have been better off trying somewhere else. Just then,
Who are you?
Someone called out to him from behind. Riku turned around and saw a short man standing there, his gaze fixed on the ground.
I'm Riku, he replied, introducing himself as he walked over. Oh, my name's Quasimodo. I'm very sorry, but the Archdeacon is away.
With nothing more to say, Quasimodo turned away and started walking back into the cathedral. There was something awkward about his hunched gait.
Actually, I'm looking for a man named Frollo, Riku pressed. Do you know where he is?
Quasimodo looked back. He was far from handsome, in both his face and his build, but he didn't appear to be a bad person.
My master, he said he had business on the outskirts of the city. So Frollo's his master. Do you mean you know him? Oh yes, he's very kind. Master Frollo saved my life,
Quasimodo explained, looking at the statue in the back of the chapel. Maybe it represented a god to the people here.
He protects me from the outside world. If so, then why does he sound so sad? He protects you from it?
Riku asked. Given the melancholy tone of Quasimodo's voice, he doubted there was much protecting going on here at all.
The people out there would be cruel to me. I'm a monster, you know.
Quasimodo opened his hands and stared at them intensely for a moment, before covering his misshapen face.
Sure, he doesn't look like everyone else, but still. Is that what Frollo told you?
Quasimodo raised his head.
Trust me, looks can be deceiving.
Riku remembered how Kairi had been able to sense his heart, even when his appearance had changed. She'd seen the face of Ansem and still called him Riku instantly.
A good friend sees you for who you are, no matter what face you wear. You should go out there, find some friends who understand you.
Oh no! Quasimodo turned away.
My master forbids it. I'm not to set foot outside. Are you sure that's what's stopping you? Because I think something else is holding you back.
Despite Riku's continued suggestions, Quasimodo started to walk off, all but dismissing the idea. Back when Riku had been in Ansem's form, he'd felt like he wasn't himself anymore, so much so that he couldn't stand to use his own name. He'd even believed staying in that form forever would be all right, as long as he could keep Sora and Kairi safe from a distance. But he knew now that he was wrong.
Ask your heart, Quasimodo.
The man stopped.
I know how much it hurts to lie to yourself and keep your heart locked away,
Riku thought.
There's so many things you can only learn by stepping out into the light. Maybe I don't have the right to tell you what to do until I can take my own advice. But I don't know if there's anyone else who can. I'll check the edge of town. Thanks,
Riku said to Quasimodo's back, then left the church behind. He hoped with all his heart Quasimodo would find it in himself to step out into the sun someday. Riku proceeded through the plaza in front of the cathedral and made his way to the outskirts. This city was fairly large. Riku sensed a strange presence around him. Dream Eaters! He brought his Keyblade up and held it at the ready. Komori-Bat flapped around Riku's head, happy to help him in the fight, and then flew straight into the pack of monsters with Meow-Wow close behind. Between Meow-Wow's ramming attacks and Komori-Bat's disorienting ultrasonic waves, they made for a good team.
Nice work, guys.
One Dream Eater snapped at him, but Riku whacked it with his Keyblade and hurled himself into the fray. He made his way toward the edge of town, scattering the successive waves of creatures that appeared. Finally, he stepped through the large gate and found a long bridge just as an enormous shadow whipped by overhead. Riku looked up instinctively and swallowed.
A Dream Eater! And a big one!
There was a massive beast flying through air. This Dream Eater, called Wargoyle, had a rainbow-colored body, large wings, and a menacing aura around it that reminded him of Hako-Monkey in Traverse Town. Once the nightmare reached the middle of the bridge, it circled back around and opened its jaws wide.
What?
The flames from its mouth ignited the pile of cargo directly behind Riku, and the next volley cut off the way back to the city. Retreat seemed like the best option here. Riku took off running, trying to escape the inferno closing in behind him. Each burst of fire kindled more of the boxes piled here and there along the bridge, but Riku could sense Komori-Bat and Meow-Wow doing their best to keep up behind him. As far as he could tell, they were managing to avoid the flames.
Stay safe, guys,
Riku muttered under his breath as he ran desperately, hurtling over the unburned goods in his way. Around the same time, Frollo and Phoebus were having a standoff in front of a small house on the outskirts of town.
Stand aside, Captain Phoebus. I will not. What have these people done wrong?
Phoebus stood in front of the modest home, shielding it from the judge. His sword was drawn, and its tip was directed toward Frollo. There were small children inside the house.
I have proof this family gave harbor to gypsies,
Frollo spat icily.
That's not a crime.
Not only was Frollo convinced the gypsies were sinners, now even helping them was a sin? Phoebus was starting to believe the only explanation was that Frollo was out of his mind. In fact, he didn't even understand why the gypsies were so maligned to begin with. Frollo claimed they had turned their backs on the divine. But what had they actually done? The girl was the one he was really after. What was she guilty of?
I can think of few crimes that are greater,
Frollo replied. Without warning, a giant monster swooped in from the direction of the city and hovered behind the judge as if it served his will. "What demon is this?" Phoebus cried, just as Riku came running up.
"Oh, you are mistaken, Captain Phoebus," said Frollo. "This is no demon. It is righteous judgment. I have been granted this power so that I may smite all gypsies now and forever."
Frollo slowly approached Wargoyle and then looked back. A sinister black aura emanated from around him.
"This is all wrong."
Phoebus brought his sword back into position, and Riku brandished his keyblade next to him. A normal person probably wouldn't be able to go toe-to-toe with this Dream Eater.
"He won't listen," Riku warned the captain. "Once you've fallen that far, there's almost no going back." "How dare you? I am a virtuous man. Good and evil shall be made plain once the gypsies face the fires of judgment,"
Frollo declared confidently, although his displeasure was plain. Ugh. Phoebus took a sharp breath. With a small Frollo began to walk away, and Wargoyle made to follow him.
"No, you don't!"
Phoebus jumped in their path, and the Dream Eater swatted him aside with its sharp talons.
Ah!
"You all right?" Riku rushed over to Phoebus and saw a wound on his arm.
"Well, I can't say you didn't warn me." "You should take it easy. I'll deal with Frollo,"
Riku said, looking toward the city where Wargoyle had gone.
"Thanks. I gotta tell you, this is embarrassing, having to rely on a kid,"
Phoebus told him with chagrin.
"You wouldn't be the first. Sorry,"
Riku replied with a little smile. The captain followed his lead, grinning back.
"I'll admit, you look more capable than me right now. All right, be careful. It looks like that creature is heading for the cathedral."
"Okay, got it." Riku took off running for the city just as his two spirit companions finally caught up to him.
"Hey, we're heading back."
The spirit slammed on the brakes, skidded to a halt, and did a U-turn back toward the city. Riku ran after them. The plaza in front of the cathedral was ablaze, and tendrils of fire were rising from the tents. Riku spotted a silhouette in the conflagration and hurried over to it. It was Quasimodo with Esmeralda in his arms.
"Is she gonna be all right?"
"I'm fine, thanks to Quasimodo." Esmeralda answered from Quasimodo's arms. The young man was watching her with concern.
"Quasimodo, where did the creature go?"
It's up there." When Riku looked up at the cathedral with Quasimodo, he saw Wargoyle circling above them, waiting.
"Right. I have to take it down."
Riku started running to the cathedral, but then Quasimodo cried out desperately after him. Wait, I'll go with you."
"Thanks, but stay with her."
Quasimodo had already won his battle, escaping the cathedral to save Esmeralda.
"Quasimodo, did your heart have the answer?"
Riku stopped and turned around. The young man nodded with a smile. Riku responded in kind, then plunged into the cathedral barely in time to see some unfamiliar Dream Eaters getting stamped out of existence. The trio responsible were statues like the ones around the cathedral.
"Well, I guess you three got this covered,"
Riku commented. The three statues hopped around contentedly.
"It was a walk in the park,"
one of them crowed.
"How would you know? You don't have any legs," retorted another.
"Yeah, but give me a break. It's just a figure of speech." More Dream Eaters appeared behind the statues as they bickered.
"Both of you, pipe down," scolded the third, "and get ready, 'cause here comes some more."
Yee-haw! As the gargoyles got ready for another battle, Riku decided to leave it to them and dashed up the stairs to the roof. Frollo surveyed the flames consuming the plaza below, a sword in his hand.
"Yes, let it burn! The flames will consume everything, you see! This is the power that has been granted to me!"
The darkness was like a shroud over him, and he seemed nothing short of insane.
"I see an old man with a dark heart."
Riku shouted toward his back. Frollo spun around to face him.
"Again, you are wrong. Now you will be judged, like the rest."
He intoned with terrible malice. Just as Wargoyle shot upward behind him, the gust stirred up a burst of embers, and Frollo lost his footing. The hem of his robe fluttering in the air, he tumbled to his doom.
"Judgment is mine!"
he screamed, plunging into the inferno. As he witnessed the miserable end of the road to darkness, Riku didn't notice that he was biting his lip. That was when someone else walked up to the sword Frollo had dropped. Someone he recognized.
"You're Ansem!"
It was none other than the one who had once taken over Riku's body and tried to keep it for good. "Why are you here?" he shouted. Another silhouette emerged, the silver-haired boy he had encountered in Traverse Town.
"Your best friend is never far."
Beside the silver-haired boy, Ansem picked up Frollo's blade and looked it over.
"So sad, the cost of yielding to the darkness."
"You could write a book about that."
"You and Frollo aren't all that different, and neither was I. Back then, I could have fallen onto the same path and met the same fate, but not anymore. But I embraced the darkness, and unless you hurry up and learn to do the same, your story will end just like this."
Ansem pointed the sword at Riku.
"I walk the road to dawn,"
Riku answered, summoning his keyblade to his hand.
"I've chosen my path, so why do I still get so upset? I've decided to walk toward daybreak, to find the light beyond the darkness. The middle road isn't the road to nightfall. It's the road to dawn."
And yet, the boy with silver hair fixed Riku with a quiet look.
"Still afraid of the dark, I see."
Riku felt his whole body going cold with sweat.
"I'm not afraid of the darkness, and yet I have to keep reminding myself of that. What if it isn't really true?"
The boy turned away from Riku and disappeared into the corridor of darkness that opened behind him. And Ansem started after him. "Wait!" Riku called. Ansem stopped and shot him a glance. He almost seemed to be smiling. It made Riku angry.
I'm not scared of the darkness. No way. Am I? No, I still have a keyblade in my hand. It's trying to guide me toward the light.
Grrr! Wargoyle swept in front of Riku and bellowed. Shaking off his hesitation, Riku tightened his grip on his keyblade and sprang into the air. "Help me out here!" Komoribat landed on his back and lent him its wings with a flash. Riku took the battle to Wargoyle in midair.
"I'm not going to lose. This is just one more step toward the light."
Closing the distance between himself and Wargoyle in the blink of an eye, Riku hit its massive fire-breathing jaw with an upward slash. The flames spewed into the air, and the Dream Eater let out a screech, soaring upward in an attempt to make an airborne escape. Riku hurriedly flew after it, but Wargoyle was ready to get back in the fight. It spread its own wings, and then fired off a volley of projectiles with a great flap. Ugh! He managed to keep himself safe for the most part with his keyblade, but several of the shots still found their mark. When Riku briefly landed on the roof, he felt a gentle wave wash over him. Meow had cast a healing spell on him.
"Thanks."
Riku stood up and glared at the hovering beast. He wouldn't be able to borrow Komoribat's power for much longer.
"Here goes!"
With a bound, Riku flew into the sky and hurtled directly into Wargoyle with incredible speed. "This is it for you!" He lashed out with a mighty blow to the center of its chest. As Wargoyle went still, Riku swung his keyblade and knocked away the creature's huge wings. One of the wings came loose and fell to the ground. Thrown off balance, Wargoyle began to fall like a stone.
"Did that do it?"
"Whoa!" Komoribat had separated from Riku, and it just barely managed to catch hold of his back before he fell. Meow was wagging its tail at Riku on the roof. Wargoyle's other wing came off as it plummeted down into the same inferno that had claimed Frollo.
"Looks like we got him."
Riku touched down on the roof and pet both Komoribat and Meow.
"Thanks, guys. I owe you one."
The spirits rubbed up against Riku with happy noises.
"Put out the fires!"
He could hear Phoebus calling down below. True to his title, the captain of the guard would take care of getting the blaze under control. With a smile, Riku left the roof. By the time he had reached the plaza, the conflagration had been extinguished. It hadn't spread to the rest of the city.
Riku!
Quasimodo came running up to him. Phoebus and Esmeralda were with him.
"Master Frollo, he made me live inside the bell tower, but the real walls were the ones I built around my heart. You helped me see that, Riku."
Quasimodo told him with a grin. Riku shook his head quietly.
"I was speaking from personal experience. It's like Quasimodo said, I'm the one building these walls around myself. Whether I stay in this prison of darkness or move into the light is up to me. You still keep a lot locked inside, don't you?"
Quasimodo asked. Riku lowered his gaze. He knew by now that keeping his heart under lock and key was the same as letting the darkness control it. and the one who had stained it with darkness was him. Riku was painfully aware of that now. Frollo was the same. The judge hadn't been especially weak of heart. Darkness lurks within everyone. We all do that sometimes. There are just some things we need to keep separate from the world at large, at least until we have time to figure them out. Esmeralda warmly said after a few moments of silence. He nodded at her gentle smile, but the doubts he had about himself were still there inside.
Where is my heart destined for? Will I find the answer by opening the doors of sleep and stepping through? When my Mark of Mastery exam is over, will I have my answer? I want to hurry ahead, but there's some small part of me that's still hesitating. Am I afraid? Or is it something else?